Saucy, the cleric in our campaign, played by Will, is such an asshole about the material components needed for Revivify.
It's 300 gold, man. I'm not even charging you for labor here. You're walking into the Michelin and be like, I need my brakes changed. Like, well, those brakes, the pads, the calipers, that's going to be about $1,500. I'll do it for no money, but you do have to pay for the calipers and the brakes. I can't get those for free. It's like, whoa. What do you mean you can't just give me shit for free? I'm literally burning diamond dust to keep all y'all alive.
Diamond dust that we earned together.
Yeah, and when we do it together, it's fine. But when you're like, oh, this NPC that I'm slightly close to fucking just got nuked to death by a revenant or something, I don't know her. I don't even like her.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your weekly Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bordigal.
And I'm Will Meldon.
And we'll be hanging out with you for the next hours to talk about anything and everything D&D related. This week we're taking a look at the Barbarian Warlock multiclass, and then later on the Balhannoth from Mordekainen's Tome of Foes. So pull up a chair and listen up.
You know, you always start every one of these with pull up a chair. But, like, what if somebody's working out while doing this, or, like, running, or just doing...
Metaphorically. It's
supposed
to be, like, comforting. It's like, we're hanging out talking, so pull up a chair with us and hang out for a while.
It's creating the symbolic realization of D&D, because nobody plays D&D at a standing desk.
I'd play D&D at a standing desk. I wouldn't. No, I'm taking that back immediately.
None of your players would be okay with it.
All right. So, today our multi-classes are... Our multi-class is the Barbarian Warlock, which... Do we have a dumb name for that?
Barbalock.
All right. So this week we're looking at the Barbalock. The Barbarian is a melee-focused class whose main class feature is its rage ability, where it can get really angry and hit stuff even harder and take some more hits. Then we have the Warlock. The Warlock sells its soul in some way or another, or is touched in the head. You always roll your eyes so much. Its brain is broken by some overpowering external being that gives
siphons power from some other powerful worldly entity that is not a god.
That's such a boring answer. So it's touched in the head by a donkey, just kicked right in the head, and then they wake up with a bunch of magical powers. So Barbarian, we've got a 13 strength requirement, and the Warlock is a 13 charisma requirement. Warlocks are the only full casters in the game, according to Will Meldon.
Only full casters.
Only full casters. But in reality, they have the most interesting spell casting in the game, where instead of having a bunch of spell slots to choose from, they have one level of spell slots and a very limited use of them at their most powerful level. So... pretty differing classes right out the gate, but let's hear some first thoughts from Kevin.
I think this could kind of fit into a similar vein as the Barbarian Bard from 2 weeks ago.
Right.
It's, I mean, you're dealing with a spellcaster with a Barbarian. But I think there's ways to do it. You could get a lot of versatility. The Warlock, since they're not just dumped on with spell slots, it's kind of limited on how often they'll do that, ignoring cantrips. So then being able to rage and hit things hard and all that, I think could be beneficial. So there's ways to do it. The possibly obvious that a lot of people might think about going Hexblade, I think is actually not that great in this case, though. And
interesting.
We'll dive into that.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to hear more about that. Will, our resident Warlock warlord.
Fanboy. Warlock fanboy.
Just trying to keep up with the alliteration. It didn't work well.
Yeah, it's really, really, really obvious to just go for the Hexblade thing, but I think Kevin's probably at least slightly right on this one. What I will say, though, is the Blast Lock is probably your worst combo here, and that's one of the better Warlock wing.
Blast Lock being Eldritch Blast?
Eldritch Blast all the way. You've
right.
got all your invocations based off that. You can build an entire Warlock that almost only casts Eldritch Blast.
And you're going to be great damage-wise and everything else.
You can move them. You can do anything with them. The damage is insane. It's a great cantrip, but as a Barbalock, you are now adding a class feature that stops you from doing that.
Yeah, and I think that's my favorite thing about Warlocks is their Eldritch Invocations. It's what really sets them apart from any other caster beyond their weird spell casting, is the fact that you can really sculpt your character in a lot of different ways. And I think what can be nice about this, and we'll obviously dive into it more, is the fact that if you do avoid that trap of only using Eldritch Blast and being an Eldritch Blast faucet, you can use those Eldritch Invocations for a lot of other interesting things. You kind of free up your ability to create some utility out of those, because they have some great ones. Even just Devil Sight, I think one is called, where you can see in darkness,
right?
Which we've mentioned plenty of times is something that is generally used with the Hexblade in order to see in darkness. I think the UA originally focused around that idea.
No, that was actually pre-UA. This is before they created the real Hexblade. It was a fighter Warlock multi-class based off of that concept.
It was creating darkness.
Yeah, they would
in an
cast
area.
darkness, and then be through that Eldritch Invocation be able to see in it, so they get advantage in everything, and everyone else gets disadvantage.
And this was basically a form creation, like the D&D forums. Created this.
Okay.
So this was pre-Hexblade.
Okay. Well, I still think that with Pact of the Blade, you're probably going to be able to get a lot out of this type of multi-class. And any martial class that takes Pact of the Blade can usually get something out of the wizards. Not the wizards. What class are we doing? The Warlock's oddities.
I think that's one of the first steps you take on the Warlock class is what pact do you go? Pact of the Tome, Pact of the Chain, or Pact of the Blade?
Right.
Chain is cool.
Yeah,
that's where your
familiar,
beefed up familiar, demonic origin or fey origin or whatever. Pact of the Tome makes your Warlock a better spellcaster.
Right, which I think in this case probably
a really bad idea.
Exactly.
Pact of the Blade was always kind of a redheaded stepchild of this class because you weren't a melee character.
Right.
So in this situation and in any martial class, I would say that's probably a easy decision to create your magical weapon that you can summon out of nowhere. And you can change it. You can do whatever you want with it. And it is a free choice. This is not the Hexblade subclass. This is something you have to decide out the gate, essentially, at their level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pact of the Blade, though, you're not getting a whole bunch with it. So if you're pure Warlock, it gets you proficiency and your backed weapon and all that. And you can attune to it and summon it and stuff like that. If you're Barbarian, you're already going to get that proficiency. So really, it just gets you a weapon that you could summon to you.
I think the summoning, I don't know. I think that's really cool. But you're right, it doesn't really show up a lot.
That being said, there are Eldritch Invocations there. If you have Pact of the Blade, you could take.
Exactly.
Which help. But they're come at pretty late levels. Like Life Drinker, it's a 12th level feature. When you hit a creature with your packed weapon, the creature takes extra necrotic damage equal to your charisma modifier. That's not until 12th level. That's a pretty big commitment for a multi-class.
Yeah, there's a couple other ones. You can take one earlier that gets you an extra attack.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's not something we're chasing as a multi-class.
Right, so you could do that at level 5, which you're going to get as a level 5 Barbarian.
I will say this, though. That is a nice thing to have in this situation because you can just not take the extra attack in this class, which is kind of a rarity for a melee additional class. Bards, it was like mandatory. You got it at 6th level. This one, you can save it for one of the other really cool invocations.
Yeah, that's true. And then in Xanathars, there's the improved packed weapon or something like that. So it opens up what weapons can be used for it. But it makes it a +1. So that's nice, I guess.
Yeah, even in our campaign, we're like, we're 8th level?
Yeah.
Not all of us have +1s, that's for sure.
No.
So that's a nice free +1 magic if you need it to be. And you can actually swap these out on levels when you need to. So if you do get a +1, you can flip it out for another thing. Right. There is no end to the utility of all of these crazy invocations.
Right. Yeah, so on the Hexblade Warlock, so this is the melee-centered Warlock, where if you... you get proficiency with swords and weapons and stuff, and you get attacked and do well in melee. And so a lot of people, if they are multiclassing in the Warlock with a martial class, will go Hexblade. Paladin to Hexblade is a real common one for mechanic. We haven't got to there yet. Mechanically, it's a really, really good one. With the Barbarian, I feel like you don't get a lot. The big thing about his Hex Warrior, where you could essentially replace using Strength or Dex for your Charisma modifier. But if you're already a Barbarian, that's not necessary, and it actually is detrimental because all your rage stuff, it's based on using Strength for your attack. So you lose that.
Right.
And then you do get Hexblade's Curse, which, I mean, that is nice. So you curse a target for 1 minute. You get a bonus to damage rolls against the cursed target. That's equal to your proficiency bonus. You crit on a 19 or 20. And if the target dies, you regain some hit points, and that's a short or long rest ability. So, I mean, that's solid. But the whole Hex Warrior thing, which is really the crux of Hexblade, is, I think, almost completely worthless as a Barbalok.
It also specifically says that you can't use a weapon with a two-handed property.
Right. Well,
which isn't always for the Hex Warrior. You can't have that be one of your Hex weapons or whatever.
Later on, at some point, it talks about if later on you get Pact of the Blade, regardless of what, your pact weapon will work for this.
Okay. Well, that's all right then.
Pact of the Blade could, yeah.
So as long as you go, and I think it's a little tough to justify not going 3 levels down in Warlock, because the pact is pretty flavorful and useful in its own regard.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Hex Warrior is weird because it does start at level 1.
Yeah.
But it really only kicks in when you're level 3.
Why, what's that?
The
Pact of the Blade. Yeah.
Which is such an obvious choice. As soon as you go Hexblade, it's like picking anything else almost seems like you shouldn't be allowed to.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, it just seems extremely silly, right? Like, you devote your entire being to this idea of like not worshiping a weapon, but kind of, yeah, you're worshiping a weapon.
Flavor-wise, this has always been one of the tougher ones for me because you are worshiping... No, you're not worshiping. You are channeling power from a sentient weapon from Shadowfell.
That's the most popular one.
Yeah, the wording is, you have made your pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell, a force that manifests in sentient magic weapons carved from the stuff of Shadow.
So
most popularly, Black Razor.
Black Razor will always be the most well-known example of this particular one, but the reality is, whatever force creates sentient weapons is the force that gives you this power, but the only thing you ever see manifest is these weapons in the general D&D realm. So you are kind of bound to a weapon, which is, I don't know, it has always been a little bit weird for me.
Yeah, no, and so I think because of all of that, I would almost, I feel like you can do more beyond this multi-class other than Hexblade. I feel like it'd be more fun to go just any of the other Warlock patrons and just keep away from the Hexblade. It's not that it's bad. It's fine. It's just, as has been brought up, kind of too obvious at times, but also just not that great.
Yeah, it's making up for stuff you would already be decent at because you're a Barbarian.
Right.
And then the other one, like the Archfey and the Fiend, are solid stuff for a Barbarian.
Yeah.
Fey Presence. Well, I remember reading these and I completely forgot them.
Well, I think that...
you could use a Q and a Q, make a creature charmed or frightened of you. I think frightened fits real well. If a Barbarian, you're
totally
intimidating them. Misty Escape, you can... All right, a little weird for a Barbarian, but I turn invisible and teleport.
Do you stay invisible until your next attack?
You remain invisible until the start of your next turn.
Okay. Well...
So, yeah, it's kind of an escape thing. And so that's obviously more Warlock than Barbarian, but, it comes from...
I could see that being useful if you are trying to get to more the big bad while some, like, tiny little minion is keeping you holed up. And you're like, okay, everybody else can deal with that. I'm going to go... get up in the shit.
Yeah.
That's an interesting reimagination of Misty Escape as Misty launch me towards the guy I actually...
Yeah. But it could be pretty cool. And I like the fact that Archfey, which is, for whatever reason for us, normally like a redheaded stepchild, where I feel like we don't talk about Archfey that much, but I think flavor-wise it mixes really well with a lot of the Barbarian stuff, specifically Totem Warrior. Just because we're kind of mixing nature into all of this.
Yeah. With Fae, I mean, the Fae kind of has this sort of naturey bent to it.
Yeah.
Where it's
pixies and red caps and hags and I'm just going through Fae creatures right now.
Elves.
Elves. Hey, elves. There we go.
And then barbarians usually also have that natural kind of nature bent to them as well. And so this feels like it's taking that to an extreme, the super mystical side of it, which is perfect for barbarian who was unlocking some warlock powers by making a pact with a powerful fey creature.
Right.
I think that's not a stretch at all. I think that works very well.
I think part of the biggest reason we do have that feeling about the Archfey is it really is grossly outclassed by Fiend.
For what reasons exactly? I agree,
really,
but
there is not every single thing on the Fiend list is universally accepted as great. There's nothing bad here. Dark One's Blessing, friggin' phenomenal.
When you reduce a hostile creature to 0 HP, you gain temp HP equal to your charisma modifier plus your warlock level.
That's awesome, especially for a barbarian. Dark One's Own Luck, being able to re-roll ability checks and saving throws with a D10 on them, when you fail, that's never not going to be good.
When you see the initial roll, but before you know the outcome.
That's still
really good, though. Yeah, I mean, that's great for those middle of the road ones where you're like, I rolled a 10, it gave me a 14 with my modifiers. I really need to pass this one. Let's add a D10 to it.
It's basically like a bardic inspiration.
Yeah.
But just for yourself.
Yeah.
Even that's a once per short or long rest, though. A little limited.
It is, but it's still great. And the 6th level subclass abilities are kind of throttled like that universally, but that one's always good. Fiendish Resilience is actually one of those ones that the Barbarian might not need as much because you choose a damage type to be resistant to.
Right.
And then Hurl Through Hell, which is 14th level. You probably won't get this as a multi-class, but you could. Always hilarious. You transport the whatever you want to hell. And
when you hit them so hard that you're transported to hell.
10d10 psychic damage.
Yeah, as it reels from its horrific experience.
Like mechanically, great. Flavor-wise, unrivaled. It's just perfect.
Especially when you think about it. So it's down there for a turn. It's 6 seconds.
Yep.
The horrors it sees in 6 seconds where it takes 10d10 psychic damage from it.
Literally the Fly of Despair.
Fly of Despair?
Oh, I did it again. It's a SpongeBob thing.
Oh, I thought so.
He pissed off the Flying Dutchman.
Right.
The Dutchman
The
unzipped
Fly of Despair.
The Fly of Despair. And they throws him in there. There's spaghetti.
Yeah. No, I remember that one. Okay.
Such a good best episode of SpongeBob.
I also think that for barbarian subclasses, Path of the Zealot works very well with basically any warlock subclass, or not subclass, but whatever you want to call them. Just because subclass, whatever. Because they have their specific. There's the fiend, the otherworldly patrons is how they describe it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So either way, Path of the Zealot works really well because you are a zealot to whatever that thing is. So if it's one of the Eldritch Horrors, you are a zealot to that Eldritch Horror. If you want to go the Celestial, which is one of the odder warlocks because it's like the heal lock, that can work really well because you can do radiant damage from your Divine Fury as a barbarian and mix it with some healing stuff. Flavor-wise, I think that's really good. Mm-hmm. Once again, mechanically speaking, I think it just depends on how you structure the class.
Yeah,
and
what you're going for.
Right.
Are you trying to boost your martial prowess with various ability, like the Fiend stuff and certain invocations and things like that? Or are you looking to become more versatile? This is a really good way to become more versatile as a barbarian, which are kind of narrowly focused, very much so.
Yeah.
So if you dip into Warlock and take Eldritch Blast, so barbarians really suffer from ranged attacks. At best, you could usually get like a javelin because it uses your strength, but it's real limited on range and all that. So then you get Eldritch Blast. I think you can get that from 1 level dip, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that will scale with your character level though, so the damage will always be keeping up. And now you have this option where if you're at range for whatever reason, which does absolutely happen, you can now Eldritch Blast it.
The only issue is you cannot do that while raging.
Correct.
So if you're mainly barbarian and you're just trying to dip into warlock for those few times that you're at range, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. But there are still times when it's like start of combat.
On your DM. Yeah. You look at a situation like this. The DM can really be addicted to the barbarian and say, "Oh, all right, you're raging. You can't cast your spells from your multi-class. As soon as you stop your rage to shoot him, the barbarian or the dragon or whatever lands right next to you. But in most situations, it's good to have Eldritch Blast. I don't think anybody would not benefit from having Eldritch Blast.
Yeah.
All senior citizens need Eldritch Blast.
Exactly.
Yeah, so a 1-level dip's going to get you 2 cantrips, one of them Eldritch Blast, one of them whatever else you want. The first thing of your otherworldly patron, so take the Fiend one, where you then get the temp hit points back upon killing something. And then some basic spells. And then that I think will really increase your versatility.
No, I 100% agree. There's a lot of stuff, especially we mentioned Armor of Agathis. That's a spell you can get as a warlock.
Right, a really good one for a warlock.
A really good one for what do we call it? Barbalock? Yes.
Barbalock, yeah.
As long as you level up in warlock, though. At level 1, it's 5 temp hit HP, and then you do 5 damage back. That's
right. It just scales very well.
Yeah.
Like Armor of Agathis. So if you're casting it at 5th level, you've got 25 temp HP, and you're dealing 25 damage to anything that hits you.
But you got to get to 9th level in warlock.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so warlocks, that is the tough thing. You scale linearly. Your entire spell list scales linearly.
And then it caps. You cannot...
No.
You don't get over 5th level spells. It caps in that regard.
With any multi-class with the warlock, you are going to be losing out on your Mystic Arcanum, which is you can pick 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells to just know and be able to cast once a day.
Right.
And that's always been kind of like the weaker part of the warlock, in my opinion. That's useful if you're pure warlock, but you can definitely dip somewhere else and not really miss them that much.
Right. No, it's true. I think there's a lot you can gather from not any class, but from a lot of the classes that, I mean, high level spells are nice, but a lot of times they start capping out on like damage and usefulness in that regard and start going in different directions. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think you're going to miss out too much by going only halfway into Warlock, which can be good. I mean, that makes it useful for multi-classing. It's probably one of the better ones to multi-class into as a spellcaster because you're not so limited or missing out on so much at higher levels where you're getting these higher spell slots and more spell slots and just more spells and all of this stuff. You're like, well, I've got my warlock stuff and I'm pretty good on my warlock stuff. Let's see what else I can grab.
No, it's pretty well accepted that the warlock is one of the single best multi-classing casters just because what they get out front is great.
Right.
And I really do like the dark ones, the Fiend in general for this one. Fiend Zealot style kind of thing. Because you're right, Hexblade gives you a lot of stuff you already get as a Barbarian. So dipping into a Fiend style Barbarian, and that makes a lot of sense. Barbarian, there's absolutely zero reason that any class would be completely immune to the pull of a devil. The only one that really has conflicts are the Paladin and the Cleric. But even then, the devils are not picky, and they're not the kind of things that are going to be like, oh, well, you're already X, Y, or Z. They're going to try and get you on their side and owe you, and they'll give you some powers for it.
Right. Say this, a lot of times when we talk about multi-classing, it's viewed as like a positive step forward, where you want to try something new, you want to dip into something that's like a different ability from a role-playing side, a different ability than you currently have. Where the Warlock lends itself to kind of like the wild magic sorcerer, where like things can happen on accident. You can open up a book and boom, your brain's filled with eldritch horrors and you start gaining these powers and maybe you don't understand them or don't really want them, but you've got them now. Same thing with the devil. Maybe you're tricked into something and yes, you get these powers, but once again, you don't really like them. They start to make you more corrupt than you want. And I don't know if a barbarian is the type to really turn away from it like a paladin would. A barbarian, that invokes a lot of conflict, a lot of internal conflict for them to start deciding which path they want to go down. Do they start seeking out these crazy powers and maybe doing whatever the devil asks if that comes up? Or are they going to start shying away from it and I don't know, harnessing their rage, there's really no reason not to, depending on their type.
I'm sorry, Satan. I'm busy focusing on my rage. I don't have time for your sinful ways.
Right. So, I mean, that's again, just kind of gives you some options on how you particularly want to play that out.
What do you think, Kevin?
I say right.
So much silence.
Yeah.
I will finalize. I'll say one final important thing is I do think the Hexblade, while half the first level is completely worthless, the Hexblade's curse is really, really tempting.
I feel like I'm an outlier with this, but like the Hexblade curse really just gets on my nerves because I feel like it goes against what the point of Warlocks. Warlocks are really cool because they are just as strong from the start of the day as they are at the end of the day, as long as they have a short rest in between. But the Hexblade's curse, that comes back on a long rest, doesn't it?
It's a short rest.
Oh, it's a short rest too?
They actually did change that.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind.
But it is still one go.
Right. It's one thing that you can say, okay, this is the thing I need to kill today, so I'm going to use it.
And you need there's an invocation to swap it, but it's high level, so
yeah,
it's kind of worth ignoring.
It's pretty late in there.
But expanding your...
Actually, I think it's just a feature.
Isn't it? Yeah, I think you're right. They changed a bunch of shit. And we actually talked about that with the Shadow Sorcerer. They stole essentially the entire class feature that used to exist.
Yeah.
The Hound used to be the 6th level, and they just retransplanted it on Sorcerer.
Yeah. 14th level Master of Hexes. You can spread your Hexblade curse from a slain creature to another creature.
Right, and that's still just in this combat. It needs to be within 30 feet, unless you want to put it on one of your allies and then kill your ally so that you can spread it to an enemy, which I wouldn't recommend. Your allies get super pissed about that.
I would say, yeah, there's the cheesy thing. Carry around a bag of rats.
Oh, it's so dumb.
Put on a rat at the start of combat. Kill the rat.
But you also don't get your temp HP from that, which kind of sucks. I mean, at level 4, it's with Master of Hexes. When you apply the curse in this way, you don't regain hit points from the death of the previously slain creature. Sorry, not temp HP.
Yes.
You just gain HP back normally when you kill something that you've hexed in this way. So, I mean, that kind of sucks. It's at that point, that's a lot of HP that we're throwing away.
Yeah, we're now 14 deep in the Warlock.
Right.
At
14 plus your charisma modifier, which is probably about 5 by now. So like 19 HP that you're like, I'll just hold off on that.
So let's say you are a 14th level Hexblade. Is there the temptation to go Barbarian? What do we get? We lose our spells, but that's not a huge deal. That's
right.
not
We already talked
thing.
about that. It's kind of fine to dip out of at that point.
Right. I mean, you get Rage, but to benefit from the bonus damage to that, you need to be using Strength to attack.
Which isn't necessarily outside the Warlock, but it is kind of.
You get Reckless Attack, which
true.
isn't bad.
Yeah.
Danger Sense, which we have said before, is pretty good. And then a Primal Path, which, depending on which one you go,
Bear. It's going to be Bear.
If it's Bear, then yeah, you're getting a whole lot out of that. Totem Warrior goes Bear Totem. They get resistance to all damage except for Psychic while they're raging. I mean, that's pretty damn worthwhile.
Have we talked about this? But every single one except for Bear is just not worth it.
I don't know about that. I think that Bear is better than the rest, but if
it's so much better. I couldn't justify not.
You still get resistance to all physical damage while you're raging, regardless. This just lets you also get it for magical damage and elemental damage.
I think that might be a bias. Like, once again, we are in the Underdark. We do take a lot of acid and poison damage. So
damn you, Jublex. But I still think you can get a lot out of Path of the Zealot, as I said before, where you can do some extra damage. First creature you hit on each of your turns with a weapon attack takes extra damage equal to 1d6 plus half your Barbarian level. I'm assuming rounded down. It doesn't say that, but I'll assume. It's either necrotic or radiant, so can really change depending on your flavor. You also get, Warrior of the Gods. At 3rd level, your soul is marked for endless battle. If a spell such as Raise the Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life, but not undeath, the caster doesn't need material components to cast the spell on you. And I want that for one reason and one reason only, and that's because Saucy, the cleric in our campaign, played by Will, is such an asshole about the material components needed for Revivify.
It's 300 gold, man. I'm not even charging you for labor here. You're walking into the Michelin and be like, I need my brakes changed. Like, well, those brakes, the pads, the calipers, that's going to be about $1,500. I'll do it for no money, but you do have to pay for the calipers and the brakes. I can't get those for free. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean you can't just give me shit for free? I'm literally burning diamond dust to keep all y'all alive.
Diamond dust that we earned together.
Yeah, and when we do it together, it's fine. But when you're like, oh, this NPC that I'm slightly close to fucking just got nuked to death by a revenant or something, I don't know her. I don't even like her.
Well, if she took 3 levels into Path of the Zealot, you could revivify her without any thought. And that, I think, is actually a little bit understated in its usefulness, just because in a lot of cases, you should be limiting the amount of times you can get diamond dust. You shouldn't just have that all the time. And this person...
It's also, we talked about this. It's not diamond dust. It's just diamond.
It's just diamond.
Yeah, we just smash them up for convenience.
Yeah.
That's become a flavor thing because you like to blow it up their nose.
I actually do kind of like that flavor. You kind of have to play to it as a zealot. The implication is that you are really kind of unhinged.
Yeah.
So you gotta just dump yourself into whatever battle.
And if you're a warlock, you're unhinged as it is. So,
exactly.
I mean, you're taking, kind of half on there, and you're just like taking the hammer and kind of smacking it until the wood breaks. And now you're just completely off.
Yeah. And this one actually, it almost seems like it would go with Undying, but you'd be better off with an Undying party member because they're more bringing people back.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff.
They get like a spare the dying
that combination, not great. But I like the Zealot. I like that combo.
Yeah, what's Zealous Presence? 10th level, you learn to channel divine power to inspire zealotry in others. As a bonus action, you unleash a battle cry infused with divine energy. Up to 10 creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you that can hear you gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. It's once per long rest, but
that's
overall,
cool.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, just giving everybody advantage ain't bad. It's not going to mix with Warlock particularly well, but I don't have an issue with it.
I like it.
And then, of course, they've got their Rage Beyond Death. At 14th level, the divine power that fuels your rage allows you to shrug off fatal blows. Basically, while they're raging, if they hit 0 HP, they don't go unconscious. They still make their death saving throws and suffer normal effects of taking damage while at 0 hit points, which means if they take damage, that's 2 death fails. But as long as they are healed before their rage ends, they come back with that health. They don't die.
It's a hilarious, flavorful thing.
It's really good.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
It's probably one of the, in my opinion, one of the best things as that is because you can just keep raging. You've got 3 death fails and everybody knows that you're going to die pretty soon here, but you just keep on pushing and you just wait. It lets your cleric hold off on that spell until combat ends when they're like, and you just, you see your buddy die and you're like, oh. That rage is about to end. Let's get him.
How many hit points do you have? I don't know, like negative 290. I'm bleeding out my eyes, man. I'm not doing great.
Right. So flavorful, it's super good. It works really well at 15th level when barbarians just don't end their rage until they want to, because now you don't have to worry about like not making an attack. I mean, really, that you can just go the rest of your adventuring day at 0 HP.
That'll be fun.
Is there any reason against that?
I'm sure
I think
there
rage
is.
has a time limit.
No. Persistent rage takes that away. That's the 15th level ability.
Kind of.
I don't think...
At 15th level, your rage is so fierce that it ends early only if you fall unconscious or if you choose to end it.
Yeah, you've got
it
a minute.
still lasts a minute.
Oh, okay. So you're still limited to a
Once
minute.
you're a 20th level zealot, you're right. You could probably walk around with both your kidneys out and be fine.
Just keep
but
on
as soon as
pushing
you go
through
to bed, then you die. So, you have to get a cleric to prepare you for bed.
the Black Knight and
Exactly.
'tis only a flesh wound. like one arm pulling yourself along.
I've got this.
That's what was one thing I loved about the Warlocks. The Undying is one of their abilities, and it's at like 14th level. Indestructible life. They basically get second wind that fighters get at second level, but you can regain as a bonus action 1d8 plus your Warlock level. Plus, if you put a severed body part of yours back in place while using this feature, the part reattaches. It's like, what use is that? When has anybody ever been like, you specifically lose an arm? I know there are like different flavorful ways to do it.
The reason we don't do that is because nobody can deal with it. Except, if you had an Undying Warlock, that'd be the flavor once they hit 14th level, is like every major catastrophe health-wise takes their hand off or something.
And they're just like, ugh, again?
I gotta use your resources, man. Put it back on.
It would have been really useful when one of your characters lost a toe. I remember that.
Oh yeah, it was Lofif.
Yeah, but that was just story
yeah, it was
reasons.
Just a toe, yeah. A long time ago, a Barbarian that lost an arm, but in the campaign it fit where he had like a prosthetic arm put on.
He got the Evil Dead arm immediately afterwards.
Did he?
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
What did it do?
No, it was
it's before my time.
No, this was Army of Darkness. Was the Evil Dead sequel where he got teleported to like medieval lands, and he was missing his arm, and they like blacksmithed him.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
that's what you got.
I was picturing like the cursed hand that was trying to kill him.
No.
Okay,
yeah. You got the medieval gauntlet that just worked exactly like your hand.
Right.
So that's not a great. I will always signal against that kind of flavoring. It's like, oh, you lose your arm, and immediately it gets replaced by this blacksmith thing that could never exist.
I mean, that's fine.
It's fine.
It's your campaign, man. You do what you want.
It's weak flavor. It's weak flavor, man.
It does kind of bring up like, why did you even lose the arm? Like, why did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. See, I know there is an injury table, I think in the DMG, that like can be a thing that happens when you go down, like when you die. So it's like you lose an eye and now you have disadvantage on perception checks that rely on sight and like little stuff like that. But we've never incorporated that.
No. There's a bunch of tables, like one of them's semi-popular, and it's just like a psychopath DM's version of what should happen. It's like, oh, you got critically hit, roll on the table. Oh, 83, that person's genitals got cut off. I'm like, what? Why? Don't. Just make them go down, man.
I think it is kind of, it's really funny though, because I love just thinking about the real life implications of D&D, where after 8 hours, you're just back to total full, everything's fine, where the other day I tripped and fell while chasing my dog and now have a really hurt shoulder, and it's been a lot more than 8 hours, and I'm not doing well. So
you are an incredibly, we're commoners, man.
I know.
I had to move all the shit out of my house by myself in one day. I wasn't better after 8 hours.
Like, as long as I get a good night's rest, everything's fine.
I had a great night's rest, and I still hurt.
That's like the one thing that's a really huge bummer. And I know there's rules around that, where it's like, okay, it's a week for a long rest, and that's fine. But still, like, if you've been knocked unconscious because you were stabbed in the stomach and you're bleeding out, and somebody's like, here's a little bit of magic just to keep you going, close those wounds a bit, and then you're just like, yeah, all right, I'll be good in a week. It's like, no, you're not. You're not good in a week. You need surgery.
They don't have surgery.
They just have magic. They're just like, they just pump you up.
Kevin,
with that.
You're a bard. What's the how do you anesthetize people in Faerun?
Yeah, you don't.
You sleep? Sleep doesn't work because you damage them.
Right.
How do we do that?
I think don't.
All right.
I mean, if you want yourself and anyone else around to feel better, you hold person them, but they're not going to feel better.
Wait a second.
You're not going to hear them scream.
Does the surgical incision, does that do?
I was just thinking about that. That'd be really frustrating if you're trying to do surgery and you accidentally make them fail their death saves.
Paralyzed. Why did it explode? We held him. We held him with held person.
That scalpel counts as a dagger. So, I mean, you at least did, 8, 9 damage to somebody who's already dead.
What a frustrating world to be in as a doctor.
That's why everybody just, talks to the gods. That they're like, I'll just poke you full of healing magic. It's a lot easier.
Whatever. I'll live with it.
Sorry that doctors just aren't necessary in the D&D world. They're really
No,
never
they're not.
talked about.
No, it's
They
clerics.
are.
Yeah, it's clerics.
There's the medical skill, and you can use a med kit to get people back up.
Yeah, I guess
That's
there
the
is.
limit of doctoring.
There's a feat too where you could use it to heal someone.
And that's
Right.
free. Yeah, that just like removes the component and stuff. That's the end of the list.
Yeah, it's not too great.
All doctors are good at is like, oh, this guy's dying. Now he's not dying. He might die eventually, but he's not dying now.
I think it'd be kind of fun to play a campaign that has no healers, just so that the medkit became worthwhile.
We do that all the time.
When?
right?
What do you mean we do that all the time?
We like had this conversation. This is the first time we've ever had a cleric on staff.
Cleric,
And
yeah.
it has seriously changed the way that we play the game.
You're right, but everybody has had some healing. We've always had a bard who's got
Right.
cure wounds.
Yeah, that's
At one point, we had a druid. They had cure wounds. I don't know who else we had. I think we also had a bard at that time.
Yeah.
Right now, even a
paladin,
paladin.
yeah.
A paladin has lay on hands to yo-yo
cure
just a
wounds,
little
yeah.
bit.
Controversial
wounds.
take. They should not have lay on hands.
Who?
Every time you use lay on hands, I'm like, that's just too much.
You're just mad because I've got 35 healing.
I mean, I've got way more healing than you do.
Right,
over
but I can-
time,
But mine's not a chance. You can
Yeah.
roll those healing words, and you're like, oh, you get 5 health. Where I'm like, there's exactly 29 health, and now I've got 6 left.
I hate that.
That reminds me of a combination error that could be good for the barbarian. One of the Eldritch invocations. Yeah, so you'd have to go back to the chain and have a familiar, which is still going to be really useful regardless. And if you take this invocation, if you're within 100 feet of your familiar and regain health, any die you roll, just treat as a maximum.
Yep, I meant to bring that up earlier. That's
Yeah.
extremely useful if you've got a healer in your party.
Yeah.
Because now, I mean, even like that, like healing word, you did that at 3rd level the other day. That's how many D4? That's
That would have been
3D4
3D4.
plus your wisdom modifier.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's 15 health right there. I'll
Right.
take that.
Yeah.
Take 15 health out of on a 3rd level spell, but at a range, whatever. Point is, that's extremely useful, and there's no limitations to that. It's not once per long rest. It's just you become a very good target to heal because you take away any of that risk.
Right.
Somebody wants to cure wounds you at 5th level, you're getting 40 HP back plus whatever their modifier is.
Right.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
All right, I actually just thought of this. Here is a reason that anything other than Hexblade is a little bit rough. There is a Hex spell that is kind of core to the Warlock, especially with certain builds, that you have to be careful. You have to avoid all this shit because it's concentration.
Right.
Right.
And that's a lot of what the Warlock was built out to be.
Is doing these concentration spells because they have
You
so
have
few.
Hex on your concentration, and
Right.
you're moving it throughout the battle. You need to keep that up. If you want to build out this Warlock, you got to do something differently. And Hexblade's probably the easiest way to make that compromise.
Yeah, that's true.
No, that's actually a really good point that we haven't brought up, and is that the Warlock spellcasting does not lend itself well to the Rage idea.
No, I was when reading up on all this, I was going through the Warlock spell list. There's so many concentration spells,
Right.
Which,
And it
which
needs to,
fits because
yeah.
you have so few slots. But yeah, that is rough.
Yeah, Hex is the
They get
absolute
mirror
worst
image.
offensive.
We're back to the Barbarian Bard, where it's like, what doesn't require concentration?
Barbarian art.
Yeah,
Barbarian art, whatever.
Looking at the
Can you give me a
Warlock spell
laminate?
list is so depressing, though. It's like there's power there, but if you do have Rage interrupting it, it's like, holy shit, I can't do anything.
Yeah,
Right.
I think if you try and focus more on, this isn't great. I don't love this idea, but if you try and focus more on like the utility ones out of combat, more with the Eldritch Invocations than anything, then you can just kind of, if you're going mostly Barbarian and then a little bit into Warlock, you can kind of forget the spells to an extent, but then, why are you going into Warlock?
Yeah, well, you have them there when you need them. Out of combat utility.
Right.
Same with the invocations. You could get some cool at-will spell casting or once a day free and stuff like that.
Right, and then if you want to do something like the Undying, where you can get Spare the Dying cantrip, which is kind of cool, and just some other stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
It's more for the flavor and the little benefits
the
you
flavor.
get.
And I do like the flavor actually. Like so,
Yeah.
you're this rage-induced barbarian who's so angry at the world at all the times he sold his soul to a devil to get more power to just better kill his enemies. And
Yeah, it almost sounds
Instead
like
of-
it would not be lawful good. probably raging more on.
Yeah.
ranging more, not raging more, ranging more on the chaotic spectrum. Even chaotic neutral kind of fits that idea.
I think I lean neutral kind of thing with here. Because
neutral is not a choice. It's a cop-out.
No.
I disagree with that. Why do you say that?
No, really chaotic neutral is more the cop-out because you're just like, I do whatever fits me at this exact moment.
That's why it's called chaotic stupid.
Right. No, neutral is, I don't know, weird. It's just weird. I don't know how you play neutral.
I played one before.
Who is
really, that? I don't know. But
tell me right now.
Shit.
It was a warlock.
It was not a warlock.
Really?
It should have been a warlock. Though.
It should have been a warlock.
Every character I make should have been a warlock. But
right,
you just got to be very neutral about things.
Yeah, you're definitely not the party face, I feel like.
No,
you're more like the go with the flow type.
That'd be a great party face, though. Like, highest charisma, neutral character. Just, like, never advocate for your own interests.
Right. People are like, we really need your help. And you're like, that sounds cool, man.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, all right, I can do that.
Just say okay to most things.
Yeah. Who should we get into battle for us? I don't know.
Okay.
Whoever. I'll help.
We got this. We don't need anybody. It's fine.
Actually, I can kind of see true neutral being the cap out. Just think how I always see it. It's the evil and good spectrum. It's kind of selfless versus selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lawful versus chaotic is following not necessarily the law, but like a code.
A code is
versus being flexible for what's right in the moment. And so then the true neutral is, so you're just as likely to act selflessly as you are selfishly, and just as likely to uphold this code as you are to be flexible on it to meet the needs of the moment.
Right.
You're just kind of letting yourself do anything you want.
Yeah.
But the fun way to play it is that you never actually make those choices.
Right.
So it's like, follow the law, break the law. Middle of the road. Help yourself. Help others. Neither.
A total rejection of it, I am totally fine with.
That's kind of fun.
Right.
Otherwise, it's really fucking boring.
Right. If you use it to just do whatever feels good for you as a person over what your character feels in the moment, then that's a cop-out.
Yeah.
If you use it to just completely reject making any hard stance on anything, even when it's really annoying, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like the Kevin, you're familiar with this. Will, you're alone. But when you ask your wife, like, hey, where do you want to eat tonight? And she goes, I don't care, wherever. And you're like, cool, how about this place? And she goes, how about this place? Whatever. Just, that's true neutral right there, where it gets to the point where you're like, holy, just make a decision, damn it.
Neutral is totally fine unless you're mad when shit doesn't go your way.
Yes, totally agree. You should also, you're right,
Meh,
you're right.
Meh. And then you're at Applebee's and like, why the fuck did we do that? No, that's me. Like, I probably lean closer to lawful evil as a person. But yeah, neutral, I don't know. I think the average NPC kind of is neutral. And if you're aiming to be a PC and you're special,
right,
you kind of want to avoid it.
It's good to have a stance on things.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You could also play it like you're the chameleon. I was gonna say you do
That's
whatever needed in the
sociopath
moment,
shit,
but that's
man.
chaotic. That's chaotic.
No,
though,
it's
actually.
chaotic.
Yeah, you do whatever needed.
We're
in the
talking,
moment.
that is
chaotic.
hard sociopath behavior right
Okay.
there. And that is not neutral. So,
Okay.
you're real neutral, probably not fun to be in a campaign with.
Yeah. All right. Anything left on Barbarian Warlock? Just final thoughts?
There's an Eldritch Smite invocation we didn't talk about.
Oh, yeah. I actually meant to bring that
your
up.
spell slot to do 1d8 per spell level plus your, I think.
And that
charisma or
works just
something.
like Smite, where you don't need to use an actual spell, so you can use that while raging.
Yeah.
So that is...
That's limited to Pact of the Blade?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And you're probably better off just going Paladin.
Not till 5th level. Yeah.
But flavor-wise, if that's what you're going for, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And I think, just trying to do a Barbarian Smiter works great.
Yeah. And then...
Yeah, it works good.
Grasp of Hadar. So that's when if you hit someone with an Eldritch Blast, you pull them 10 feet towards you. Again, it can really help mitigate the lack of range issue. So you have the Eldritch Blast to use it when something's at range, and if someone's trying to flee. I mean,
But you have to drop your rage for that.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks.
Yeah, but I think about it kind of roleplay-wise. You're fleeing from this terrible person, the Barbarian Warlock, the Barbarian Lock. What do we call it?
Barbalock.
Barbalock, thank you, yes.
Barbara.
and you get hit
Barbalock.
with this terrible force damage in the back of your head, and you find yourself ripped 10 feet closer to it.
Yeah, no, that's good. But it feels
Like, oh shit.
better for a villain than it does for a PC. That's
edgy
not
PC.
necessary. Right.
This
right.
is a very edgy character.
Yes.
that
Yeah.
We haven't said this. This is an incredibly edgy combination.
Yeah, instead of like the buff person in like a loincloth and a ponytail, it's like a buff person in black leather and eyeliner. That's
Yeah, I
kinda
work
picture.
out and I also love Satan.
No,
Probably still with a ponytail.
Oh yeah, no, you got. I mean, or it's
Man
probably
bun?
just down. You know,
Okay, yeah, just black greasy hair, just down.
why?
I took devil's sight because my hair keeps getting in my eyes.
Fuck, that's hilarious. Cool. Will, any final thoughts?
No, I like it. Anything with a warlock is great. It's diluting the best class in D&D, but it's still great.
All right. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Let's go ahead and move on to our monster of the week. But before we do that, we've got our usual self-promotion. So if you are just struggling to find us on social media, luckily we are here to guide you. If you go to Twitter and you type in monsters_multi, you're going to find us because we're the only one with that name. You can't have multiple people with the same name. So, good on you for waiting this long. You've really been a holdout. I'm sure you haven't heard any of our other self-promotion. So,
Or, new listeners.
yeah, what? We don't get new listeners, do we? If you're a new listener, yeah, I guess one of those mythical beasts, then follow us on Twitter. Discuss D&D stuff with me to pass the day.
Review us wherever.
Review us, leave
Also,
reviews,
yeah,
subscribe to us.
Even if you're not a new listener, you could review us.
Yeah.
Unless you already reviewed us, you probably shouldn't do it twice.
If you
That
already
feels
reviewed
unethical.
us, make a new account and leave another review
I
for
don't
us.
think we could ask for that.
Better than the last.
That feels super unethical.
How'd you guys get banned off iTunes? Well,
Yeah, don't make
Okay,
multiple
don't do that.
accounts, yeah.
Don't make multiple accounts for us. But share us with your friends and just generally, I don't know, talk to me. I'm lonely. And Twitter's become a bit of an addiction because these guys didn't want to be the social media managers. So thanks, everyone, for that crippling addiction.
Adam, guys.
All right, let's move on to our monster of the week. Take it away, Kevin.
KEVDOG.
KEVDOG in the
Kevbone.
Kevbone in the morning. Woof, 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 woof.
Yeah, I hate this.
Take it away, Kevbone. I'm done.
This week's monster is the Balhannoth. It was a recommendation from the Reddit user Ishihara's Bitch. Interesting name. The Balhannoth is a aberration from the Shadowfell. As just like all aberrations, they have the ability to mess with people's perceptions and minds. A lot of aberrations have mind control and stuff like that. This one can warp the reality around it to meet a creature's biggest desire, to lure them into a false sense of security, where it then just eats them. You always need to look out for them in the Shadowfell, but they are also dragged into the Underdark, where drow raiding parties will actually capture them and set them up as sentries outside their fortresses and whatnot. It's a pretty big stat block. It has layer actions and a lot of really interesting stuff here. So what are you guys' thoughts?
My thoughts are, Ishihara's Bitch, I hate you for recommending this because we're currently in the Underdark. And this thing is right up Kevin's alley of fucking with us. And I'm, regardless when you inevitably throw it at us, I'm just going to have to grin and bear it and pretend I don't know what's going on because I'm a good role player like that. But this thing...
Did I already know about this?
Oh, no. You probably
Yeah,
didn't, but...
I don't know. At the end of last episode, you finally made it to the city you're going to.
Oh, no.
And it's in kind of a weird...
Oh,
odd
son
state,
of a
isn't it?
bitch.
But no, actually that's the number one thing I love about this is it's one of those times where a DM just gets to sit back and mess with their players' heads. And that is always a great monster where you can go on for a pretty good amount of time where this thing's, exposing the deepest desires to maybe just one of the party members to just keep them moving and say like, no, I need to keep pushing ahead. Like I see the thing that I want more than anything. And until it's just too late. And this thing packs a punch at challenge rating 11, and it's got all the good stuff. It's got multi-attack. It's got legendary resistances. It doesn't have good saving throws though.
It's actually very squishy.
Yeah. So
this is very much like a roper mixed with an LSD trip. It's
a really bad one.
not necessarily until the Balhannoth gets there. This is a great LSD trip. It's like, oh wow, I found everything I was looking for.
Right.
Oh no, it's actually just a monster.
Yeah, it's just a roper with even more tentacles and. Oh God, it's really ugly.
It is.
It's got a picture.
Yeah,
it looks
Always
like it looks like a melted version of the Predator.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Without any of the armor. Yeah,
With
I see that.
tentacles. Yeah,
And tentacles, of course.
So yeah, it's a large aberration. As 25 speed, 25 climb speed, 114 hit points, 17 AC. So nothing too crazy there. Yeah, 2-a-day legendary resistance, and it makes a bite attack and 2 tentacle attacks. Those hit hard, though, for challenge rating 11.
Right.
The bite attack is 40-10 plus 3, and then each tentacle attack is 2d6 plus 3, and that also grapples and pulls them closer.
Right, and I think it's really important to point out its multi-attack is pretty interesting. It either makes a bite attack and 2 tentacle attacks or 4 tentacle attacks, and its tentacles are pretty scary. Reach of 10, plus 7 to hit, 2d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage, which isn't really that much, but the target becomes grappled and restrained. With an escape DC of 15, it's not going to be that easy to get out of, but it can do this.
Where's the restrained? I don't see that.
Until this grapple ends, the target is restrained.
Yep.
The only thing that kind of is limiting about this tentacle attack is that it can only do it on one target once it has that grappled target. So
Per tentacle.
Does it say that per tentacle?
You can't use
it
this
does
tentacle against other creatures. The Balhannoth
right.
has 4 tentacles.
You're right. So, I mean, even first turn, it can just lash out, grab all 4 PCs, and now it's doing its bite attack, which is, once again, 40-10 plus 3 piercing damage with advantage, and it's restrained. So does that do anything else, or is it just advantage on that?
Just advantage.
And then all the PCs attacks will be at disadvantage.
Right. So that's some good stuff right there.
And then as its legendary actions work between each person, you keep
it
doing
has
the bite.
three legendary actions.
The bite attack is catastrophic
Right.
for especially a party that's kind of spec for this. But teleportation and vanish, which it can also do, I think this is important because this is a very squishy and semi-easy to hit and
Simple.
kill
It's a simple creature.
unless it's got the advantage tactically.
Right.
If your players are, 100 feet away from it and can clearly see it, you've screwed up your encounter. It will be dead in a few turns.
Well, that's its entire thing, is it's luring you into its area. And I think it actually gets it gets regional effects, but does it have layer actions? It does have layer actions. We'll talk about that in a second. Sorry, keep going, Will.
But yeah, if you look at the legendary actions, the Balhannoth can magically teleport with anything it's carrying, all that stuff up to 60 feet. If they get too close to this and they're like resisting these tentacle attacks, this is a good way to get out of that and kind of restart the fight. Vanish. I don't actually see a situation when they want to just go away. These creatures are kind of like just evil monsters who do want to just do bad stuff. But it can get an advantage on the...
I think it's good to start.
That's a good start. But yeah, as a legendary action, maybe just spicing it up.
I think it's what you were saying, where if it gives you opportunities to reset the encounter almost, where it takes a couple big hits right from the start, but it grapples somebody and then teleports away and then vanishes. Does it? Oh, you know what? It doesn't make the thing it's grappling invisible. So that part makes it a little bit difficult.
That's another reason.
But it could teleport with creatures grappling.
Right. So maybe it vanishes after it doesn't have anything grappled, and it just kind of resets on the field, and now it's up to your party to try and find this thing before it gets a really good attack, either by its bite or its tentacles, whatever.
Well, the flavor does describe it. These are not smart enemies.
Right.
Their ability to craft these
6 intelligence.
things they want is totally natural. It's not this cerebral way of doing things.
They're not like mind flayers who are like extremely smart about all this
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
But if you're going towards a location and say the Drow have hired, quote unquote, convinced this thing to guard a tunnel or something like that, forcing your players to go through it and letting it teleport through this place, they have no other options, and that's actually a really good combo.
Yeah. And I think at any time that you're fighting this, it's going to be in its lair. And it's got some pretty interesting lair actions. One of which is the Balhannoth targets one creature within 500 feet of it. Target must succeed on a DC 16 Wisdom saving throw, or it just gets teleported to the Balhannoth's choice of anywhere within 60 feet of it. So that can be really useful if somebody's trying to stay far back, like the wizard, and you're like, nope, you're right in front of me now, and I'm going to break that concentration that you have by doing 40-10 damage on one of these bites, with a pretty high potential to crit if they're restrained as well.
Right. And this is also the type of thing I would think would generally be like on the ceiling.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to get to. Like the paladin's going to struggle to.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And
unless they have wings.
They've got the legendary action to really screw with the paladin. The last one, for 1 minute, they make a saving throw, or the Balhannoth becomes invisible to that creature, which is an interesting take on invisibility.
You said
the layer action.
Yes, yeah. Just to clarify, the last layer action is that targets one creature within 500 feet of it, DC 16 Wisdom saving throw, or the Balhannoth becomes invisible to that creature for 1 minute. Once the Balhannoth attacks that target, it does drop the invisibility, but it can recognize, like, okay, that thing hits really hard, so I'm going to become invisible to that. And I don't know. One thing that I would kind of question is the fact that if I thought, oh, this thing's invisible, but I can see all of my friends around it getting grappled and bit, and you're like, okay, I kind of know where it's at, which takes away one aspect of it, but you still have disadvantage on the attacks.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the mechanical goal.
Right. Give them disadvantages.
Yeah. And then, the main thing of its layer action is warping the terrain around it to reshape it into the, whatever an intelligent creature nearby seeks most. And it's going to know, because it has regional effects, any creature within 1 mile of its lair, it's going to be able to read its mind and understand what it desires most.
Yeah.
It's going to be super awkward when you walk into a cave and it's just like giant mattresses and anime body pillows.
Is that your greatest desire, Will?
Basically.
Specifically the body pillows, not like an actual anime.
No, I like
Not
the
making
body
anime
pillows.
real. It's the body pillows. They're
I'm
so
a realistic guy. I know that can't happen.
Second that happens, you're like, nope, shutting this down.
Nope, that's a monster. Give me the body pillows.
This is definitely a fake. Yeah, but it's body pillows, so like maybe we can just live in this delusion for a little bit.
So I don't know how you would work this into a campaign to use with your PCs, but I kind of get this sort of like horror fantasy vibe.
Yeah.
They think they could make a really cool like episode of a show like Doctor Who or something, where there's this outpost somewhere, and there's this Balhannoth that has been installed, so to speak, to guard it. And everyone in this outpost is aware that it's there and knows what this thing is, but it still doesn't change the fact they're seeing what they desire most.
Right.
And so there's kind of this whole thing, all right, what are you seeing? What is it warping? Like maybe there's some really terrible shit being seen from everywhere. Like, who is that pulling off of? Why is this showing this person murdering that person? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there you can get to real dark psychological stuff where everybody can't help but feel this little bit of a pull to just give in and go over there anyways.
I like that. I actually like the idea of bringing other people's greatest desires out, especially like a military outpost. You like see like these horrible murders, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? But the guy is like, who got murdered is still obviously alive and working with the guy who murdered him, and you're like, what was that? What the fuck did I just see in those caves?
Yeah, that's really cool.
No, this is actually a great enemy. It's very squishy. It's very easy to take out, but
It's a good session.
Yeah.
So I feel like you
Yeah.
can really mess with your players for like a good amount of time here as they're seeing their greatest desires. They're being pulled in. They have to figure out what's going on. And it leads up to a pretty satisfying fight. I
These
feel like.
actions are all like 500 feet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You put it in a cave, and as the DM, like, honestly, you can tell them what you think 500 feet is.
Yeah.
It's like, how far can I get in a turn? It doesn't matter. It's a cave, man.
Right. And more importantly, your players aren't going to know that 500-foot limit.
Exactly.
And they shouldn't.
So you can, this is a great enemy to screw with your players.
One thing I think would be kind of funny about this is you can really mess with terrain when it comes to this.
Yes.
So if somebody's greatest desire is a library, let's say, you might be in a totally open cave, but they're seeing like all of these bookshelves and stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm like behind cover here. This would be super weird, but you could totally do 4 different battlefields where you've got,
That'd be an interesting take on this monster.
yeah, it'd be tough. I'm not saying that'd be easy. I'd have to work out how to do that, but you could have like multiple areas on your battle map
I
or
don't
whatever.
think it quite works that way. I think it literally shapes the terrain.
Oh,
Yeah.
does it?
Yeah, it's not just in the mind of. The
I
individual.
think that'd be actually an interesting reflavor of this character.
Okay. Well, okay, that would be an interesting reflavor, but overall you could still do something like that where they think they're behind cover, but really that's just a bookshelf that they put there for the wizard who seeks great knowledge, you know. Things of that nature could be really cool.
Yeah, I like in Mordenkainen's one of the little like kind of handwritten notes from Mordenkainen about this thing. There are no virtues in the Shadowfell, thanks to the Balhannoth. Even hope is punished with death.
Those are some of my favorites in this book.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that if you do think you're in cover in any situation with this thing, you're not. It has 500 feet of blind sight.
Yeah, which is nice too. 500 feet of blind sight and nothing beyond that, which is mildly interesting. I don't know. I mean, it's going to lure you a lot closer before it makes an attack.
Who's got anything past 500 feet?
And also
The ranger or whoever who took the sharpshooter feat and is shooting a longbow at 600 feet without disadvantage.
Yeah, don't put this guy in the field. We had this conversation like a couple episodes. If you put these bosses in a field, they're a lot less fun.
Right. You have 20 turns to prepare moving up to it. Okay, let's get a cannon. Just launch that bitch.
yeah, I think I really like the aberration kind of monster type.
This is one of the better aberrations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Aboleth was also an aberration, and all of them just have that kind of ability to warp reality and mess with people's minds, and
Right.
that makes for it's nightmare feel really.
Yes.
It tugs at all of them. I think tug at like kind of primal fears.
Right. And I think that's something that's kind of difficult to portray in D&D is really, again, tugging on those primal fears, but illusions are always a good way to do that, where you think you're seeing something, but nope, sorry, you're getting dragged into a cave and eaten is pretty scary.
Right.
Or, you know, finding out that this is happening to a drow settlement. That one would be super weird if you're like traveling through the Underdark and drow are like, hey, we actually need your help. Normally we'd be here trying to lure you in, but, you know, things went poorly. So how about a get out of drow jail free card if you help us out? Could have used one of those.
Yeah.
They are a civilized race. They're just evil as shit.
Yeah.
I can see one of these things getting out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Make a really fun session. Basically, that's it. Wouldn't be a good encounter. This should have some ramp up time.
Right.
Make it a session. I don't think it works for multiple sessions because after a while it would just get old. And it sure as shit ain't working for a campaign because
these guys are dumb as hell.
Yeah.
You really like any kind of dumb enemy. This is great for a ramped up session.
Right. That maybe the Nagpa put it there.
I think the Nag probably would.
This thing would be great at slowly destroying a civilization.
Would it?
Yeah, by just
like
luring
900 of them, maybe.
Maybe a village.
Yeah, maybe a village. I don't know. I think the Nagpa's got better arsenals than this guy.
Damn. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there goes the.
So this is
Nagpa
the
idea.
first enemy we've ever done that is not related to the Nagpa.
Right.
He's too dumb.
Even the Neogis were like perfect.
The elemental one's also perfect. This guy's 2 in the middle.
All right. That's all I got.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Next week, Monsters and Multiclass.
Join us next week as we look at the Monk Ranger multiclass and Goblinoids Part 2, The Goblins.